Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be doing an ultimate guide on how you can get started as a beginner on Supabase local development. So this includes different things like schema migrations, seeding, diffing the schema, doing some edge functions. So we're all going to see this today. There's some things I want you to install before we proceed. So first things first, I'm going to want you to install Node.js with npm. And then right after that, install Docker Desktop. Docker Desktop is an environment that allows you to run Docker containers and really provide you a UI so that you don't have to run commands manually. And then right after that, you're going to be able to get started. Initially, what we're going to want to do is create a new project. So for us, I just created a test project, which is pretty simple. We're gonna then first want to install the Supabase CLI. So for this, what I'm gonna want to do is paste in this command. So we're gonna have Supabase npm install Supabase save dev, just like that. And once you run this, this is gonna install the Supabase command line interface. And basically you're going to be able to call it with npx Supabase right after that. We're going to want to go ahead and configure our Docker desktop instance. So once you open it, it's going to look something like this, just like that. And you're going to want to go to the settings, just right there in general, and then click on expose daemon on TCP localhost 2375. This is going to allow basically our Supabase instance to be able to show up the analytics, which otherwise won't work if you don't activate this feature. So do this, and then once you do this, click apply and restart. It's going to restart the Docker daemon automatically, and you're going to be good to go. So first things first, you're going to want to do npx Supabase init, just like that. And then it's going to ask, do you want to generate VS Code settings for Dino? You can click yes. So then what it does is basically create a new folder called Supabase, which has your config.toml, which the config.toml basically acts as a settings file that allow you to call environment variables, modify how the Supabase Docker images proceed to basically start or things like that. So you could, for example, say I want multiple seed files, so you could add the star instead of just a single file, which we're not gonna go that into it, but if you go look at the comments, you can see a lot of modifications you can do. And then after that, inside the Supabase folder, we're gonna have the migrations and the functions, which we're gonna see later. So first thing I want to do is just start the project. So to start the Supabase instance, we're going to do npx Supabase start, just like that. And what this will do initially, if you didn't start it, it's going to download all the images, and then it will build up the containers and start the whole Supabase instance. So we're just gonna wait a while for this to. Okay, so once it's finished, you're gonna see right here that we have basically all our URLs of what each service is available to, and we also have the anon key, the service role key, and the S3 access keys, which is very useful. So first thing we're gonna want to do before doing all that is basically, if you have the cloud instance of Supabase, you can connect your local setup with a cloud version of it. So I'm going to show you how you can do that, and I'm going to show you what's the alternative for you to basically run it using a self-hosted version on Coolify, like in one of my tutorials. Dashboard, and then let's take a simple project I have and just go to project settings. And then what you can do is simply use the project ID you have here and copy it. And then once you've copied it, you can then save it and make sure you have it on the side. And then you need to log in to your Supabase instance. So we're going to do Supabase npx Supabase login, which is going to prompt us to open it in the browser. Okay, so we press enter, and then we have the authorized API access. This is just basically gonna allow you to talk with your Supabase instance. So then we go here and we enter the verification code, and now we're logged in. So then you get the code that I told you to get earlier, this project ID code, and then you go here and you do some npx Supabase link, just like that, and then project ref, and you paste the project ref. And what this will do is basically allow the Supabase CLI to match the Supabase folder here to your hosted instance, which basically allow you to either pull the schema or push changes to the schema and things like that. And then you have the password, which I don't remember if I know it by heart, and we're gonna enter right there. And as you can see, we basically have connected the instance. So right now what happens is your local dev environment is linked up to your parent environment. So what happens is when you do changes, it does it locally, and when you're ready to basically upload the changes to your production environment, you can then upload it right there. So this is very useful if you want to do some testing with different new features or new edge function or something like that. You can test it. So first thing I'm gonna want to do is we're gonna play a bit with the migrations. So migrations are basically a way where you can segment operations into SQL. So let's say you create a new table. Well, you could segment the creation of the new table and then the insertion of new data in it. And migration files are basically sequential files that you can run after that to replicate an environment that you've played in the past. So you can roll back those migrations, you can redo those migrations. There's many things you can do, but we're going to see the general view of what a migration is. So one thing you could do to get started is once we've got Supabase linked in, it's like if we were talking to the upstream database. So you could do npx Supabase db pull, which this will pull the schema from the database and basically create a new migration file so that we can run it on our local database. So as you can see, dumping schema from remote database to basically give us access to the SQL schema. So update remote migration history table, you can do yes. And then it shows you a bit of notices and already exists skipping. Yeah, so we don't really care about that. It tells you that it repaired migration history, which it added this migration history to our basically history table. And then it says that the auth and the storage schemas are excluded, which you can specify them if you really want. For us, we're gonna stay with the public schema only because we only want the structure. And then as you can see, it created a new migration file, which we have some table, some create extensions and things like that, new tables, stuff like that. So we can see this here. To run it, we're gonna basically do Supabase migration up. So npx Supabase migration up. And this will basically apply the migration. So local database is up to date. So we can actually see probably right now, if we go to our instance right there. So this is our local instance. Once we've started the instance earlier with the CLI npx Supabase start, this is what you're gonna see. So you have your old instance right here, and you can see that we add the tables because we just ran the Supabase migration up, which applied the migration to our local instance. So we have the tables, the same tables as we have in the supabase.com instance. We have it here on our local instance, so this worked well. One thing you need to run also, just to make sure everything's all right, so you're gonna want to run Supabase db reset, which will basically make sure that everything is synced up in the local database, and it's going to recreate the database just to make sure that we have the right schema. So while you're waiting for this, you're going to want to basically make sure that everything is working. You have the right tables, stuff like that, and then after that you just wait, and we're going to go to the next step. Okay, so now that we did the DB reset, we have the new refreshed instance right here, and we have our changes that were reflected. So we have our jobs, leads, points, profiles, all this is right here. So then we're able to continue with the next step. So next step is going to be playing with migrations a bit. You can create custom migrations, not only pulling the schema, but making SQL changes locally and then pushing it to your hosted instance. I'm going to show you this right there. So first thing you're going to want to do is create new migration. So for this example, we're going to do a simple employee table example. So we're going to create a new PowerShell instance to keep those keys there so that we need it later. And what you're going to want to do is do npx Supabase, then migration, and then new, and we're going to call it create new, create employees table, just like that. And this will basically create a new migration file into our folder. As you can see, it created the file. So create employees table right there, which is empty because we didn't specify anything to put in it. So one thing you could do is basically add code in it. So I will add this code, which is basically a create table basically operation that will create a new table and put it empty, no data in it yet. So what we can do is do the Supabase DB reset to apply the migration, which will basically reset the old database and create the table at the next creation of the database. But we're not going to do it yet. What we're going to do is also we're going to add a new migration to add a table. So let's say we want to add another one. So npx add a column, sorry. So let's create a new migration, add department to employee table. So we have another script right here, and we can do, let's say we have an alter table that adds a new column called department with default value as uli, and this will basically create a new migration file that will reflect at the next restart. So let's do npx Supabase DB reset, just like that. So it's gonna reset the local database, recreate the database without restarting the containers. Obviously, it's gonna just recreate the database. As we can see the changes it's doing into the containers. So we have the database right here. So as you can see, it's basically executing the schema that we have right here. So you can always see the logs if you want into the Docker container. And as you can see, it's still running some stuff. So as you can see, we're now applying the migration files that were in our directory of migrations. And as you can see, it just finished. So it said that they applied migration and it finished the DB reset. So if we now go and check our Supabase local instance, as you can see, we still have our 4 tables. We also have our new employee table, and we have the department column, which was part of the new one of the migration files we had. So if we were to remove this file and do the Supabase DB reset, it would actually recreate the schema, but without this column, which we could do if we wanted. So this is pretty much how migrations work. Now this is really like overview of how it works. There's obviously much more complicated logic you can add to basically do some conditional migrations and apply it to your upstream schema and things like that. So we can do that in another video if you guys are interested. But for now, we're gonna skip to the next part, which is a seed. So a seed is basically a way where you can insert mock data or specific data into your database each time the schema is created. So what you would usually do is create a seed file. So we're going to create seed.sql file, because as it is said in the Tamil file, we have an SQL paths parameter that says that the seed file is going to be seed.sql, but could be seed_file.sql or whatever you want to put it. Just change it here if you want. Or you could also, like I said, just use any SQL file like this. That's up to you. So we're going to go into the seed SQL file, and what we're going to want to do is insert data into the employee table that we did with the migration creation of the new table. And we're going to insert data basically when the schema is created, and this will execute the seed file at the start. So we can test this with the npx Supabase db reset and see what it does. So I'll just fast forward to when it's finished. So as you can see right now, we are seeing the migration file being applied. So we have our 2 migration files, and we also have the Supabase seed.sql seeding data. So this is a good sign that our data is being seeded. So if we now go and see our Supabase instance, and we see the employee table, we see that we have data, which is pretty good because that's what we wanted. So this is for seeding, pretty simple, and as always, there's more ways you can do some more complicated stuff, but for us, we're gonna do it this way. So then another thing that is really interesting that you can do is basically doing some diffing. So this is basically doing the difference, watching the difference between your upstream database and your local database. How you can basically view the difference and apply the difference to the one that is different. So let's say we have a new table we want to create that is called cities. So let's go ahead and create a cities table into our local instance of Supabase via the SQL editor. So just like that, we run code, we have a new cities table. Great. So now what you're going to want to do is, since we know that it's not on the cloud instance, what you're going to want to do is find a way to basically generate that schema based on what is the difference on our local schema and our upstream schema. So let's do this from the Supabase command line. So we'll do npx Supabase db diff with the schema public. So this is going to compare the 2 databases and see what is the difference between the schema public of our local instance and our upstream instance, which could have differences. So as you can see, when it's finished, it's seeing the differences between basically our tables. So it knows that between the 2 schemas, so the public schema of the hosted instance and the local instance, in the local instance we have the table called cities that has basically been created with no data, and also has some basically permission. So what we want to do is, let's say you have an upstream database, you did a lot of changes locally, but you want to apply it to the upstream database. What you can do is then create a new migration. So let's do npx Supabase migration new, then add cities table, just like that. It's going to create the new file right there. It's going to appear. Yeah, so we have this, and then you can copy basically the differences, add it to this file that we just created, and then you can do the Supabase db reset to basically do the difference between the 2 files, and this is going to create it also locally. But one thing we want to do is also do the difference on the upstream database. So how we would do that, you would basically go ahead and do the Supabase. So npx Supabase db push. So this is going to push the local schema to the upstream database. So it's going to say, do you want to push these migrations to the remote database? We're going to say yes, because we want to create the employees table, the add department to employees table, and also the cities table, which we just created. So let's go ahead and check right here. We don't have this table, this employee table, and also we don't have the cities table. So let's click yes. So as you can see, it applied those two migrations. If we go to the cloud instance of Supabase and we basically refresh, we can see that we have the cities table and we have the employee table, which has also the department. So it applied all the basically migrations that we have here, and then after that, this is basically the result we wanted. So we have the migrations applied and the all the alter tables we wanted to do. So that's pretty much for the seeding, the migrations, and the diffing, the three basically pillars of all of our database interaction when you're playing with schemas, and basically to add a layer of security when you're doing some really some database work. So then one thing you guys might be the most interested in is the edge functions, which we're going to do right now. So I'm going to show you how you can play with edge functions, how you can create new ones, how you can deploy new ones, and how you can test them. So one thing you're going to want to do is close this folder migrations. We're not going to need it anymore. Now what we're going to want to do is do the npx Supabase. Then we're going to call the functions options, and then create a new function called hello. All right, so this is the basic Supabase edge function that it shows you how to create. This can be a bit tricky because it's using Dino, which if you never use Dino, they have a different package manager and different syntaxes. So I'm just going to show you how you can use it, test it, and then be able to run it on a local server, and also push it to the basically the remote database. So as you can see, we did the npx Supabase functions new hello, and we have a new message called create new function at Supabase at functions hello. So as you can see, it created the JSON file, which you don't need to know what it does, and it created this basically this example file, which is the first function. And then what you can see is it also tells you how you can run it locally. So for ourselves, what we're gonna do is run this function. So what we can do is do the npx Supabase functions serve hello. So this is gonna, oh, I did server, so let's do serve instead. So this is gonna run the function locally and basically allow you to play with it. So initially it's going to download Dino because you probably don't have it on your computer if you've never done Dino. And it's going to use the Supabase Edge runtime that is basically available on your Docker container. So as you can see, Supabase Edge runtime test project, we can click on it and it's showing us the logs. So serving functions on this IP. As you can see, and we can see also in the comments if we look down that it says you can ping it to this endpoint. So I just pulled up Postman, which Postman is a way to ping APIs. So I have right here my function, we have the URL, we have the bearer. So the bearer is really important. The key in the bearer is basically the key, the anon key, or the service role key that you had right here into the when you started Supabase. So when you did npx Supabase start, this is the key you're going to want to use as authentication for your API request. So you pasted it right here, and the body is going to be just putting your name, so you could put whatever you want. And then when we click send, as you can see, we have hello widget. So let's change that. Let's put TO send, and then we get LOTO, because what it does is basically you have a function that takes in a parameter, which is the name, and then responds as hello, the name that you passed. So you can do whatever you want in the functions. It's a pretty extensive way to make functions that are close to your users. So edge functions is basically a global network of servers that basically looks at what's the lowest latency between a server and your user, so that it can serve the user the fastest it can. So this is really useful if you want to do some time sensitive things, or you want to cut latency a lot. This could be really useful for you. So then what you can do is, instead of doing the Supabase DB push to basically apply the changes on the upstream database like we did, what we can do is, once we finish with that, we can then push it to the upstream database in another way using npx Supabase functions deploy hello. This will take our local code and apply it to the upstream database, building the function and putting it to the project that we linked it to. So if we go to massive SEO, the supabase.com instance, we go to edge functions, we can see that we have our function right here that was created right now at 9:53. We have one deployment, and you can see the invocations and stuff like that, which is very cool. So we could also try to ping it. So let's do hello like that. Instead of doing this, we're gonna do the API. So we could take this URL, put it right here, function hello. Then we're gonna need to change the bearer. So for the bearer, we're gonna go with the anon key. We're gonna copy it, and we're gonna do this, copy the key, and then we can send the request. And as you can see, we get a response, but this is on the cloud instance instead. So so we can put whatever we want, and then send again, and as you can see, we get the response. So this is basically how you do the pretty much the edge functions for Supabase. Obviously, you can do more complicated ones. You can use environment variables and stuff like that, but this is basically a good introduction, I think. If you guys want me to do another video on Supabase local development, definitely tell me. Now I want to do some a bit of parentheses for what is the local development when you have a self-hosted instance of Supabase, because it changes a bit of things when you're doing this. So what will happen is that when you have basically a Supabase instance that is not on the cloud version, you're gonna need to use the parameter called db_url. So you can search on that on Google, but basically you have Supabase CLI db_url parameter. So you're gonna need to use this command, because you cannot link a self-hosted Supabase project to the CLI, because you don't have a project reference ID, because it's not on the same servers that Supabase uses. So you're gonna want to use the flag called db_url. So you're gonna need to pass the connection string. The connection string is basically a URL of what you can where you can connect to your Postgres instance. So one way you can find this connection string is basically have the server IP. So for example, one of my server that I use is my Coolify server, which has my project and stuff like that. So what you can do is basically get this IP. So for us, we have the this IP, and then make sure you port forwarded the port you're using for Postgres. So basically, you could go ahead, go to your terminal, and then just wait for the servers and containers to load. You're gonna go to the localhost connect, and then you're gonna go and do docker ps, and then you can do grep Postgres. So as you can see right here, what we have running is our Supabase databases, and we also see that the port that is exposed is the 5432. And basically this just tells us that on TCP 5432 we have this TCP port running that is being able to be connected from the outside. So if we do lsoff just like that, so if we check the running ports, check running ports, so we can see lsoff. So once we run this command, this lsoff command is going to tell us which ports are exposed. So for yourself, you're going to want to make sure that the 5432 or any database port you're using is exposed. This will allow you to basically remote connect to your database. And the connection string is basically going to be a combination of the IP you're using for the server, just like this, the port you're using for the server, the username you're using for your Postgres database, the password you're using for the Postgres database, and also the database you're using. So it's pretty much the only difference you're going to want to do when you're doing any kind of the same commands that I did in this video, but with a self-hosted instance. As you can see, pretty much each command, there are some ways where you can use the DB URL flag. So for self-hosted databases, you can pass in the connection parameters using the DB URL, which is exactly what we want to do. And it tells you also right here that that's what you need to do. So you can do it with the DB pool. So you have the DB pool option that allows you to fetch the schema. You could do the same thing with the self-hosted instance. So that's pretty much it, guys, for today. I really wanted to make sure that. So that's pretty much it, guys, for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to see a more advanced guide on Supabase local dev, definitely tell me, and it would be my pleasure to do it. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next one, and I hope you have a good day.